Happened last week, the Senate approved the share of revenue to the counties to be 385 billion shillings. Earlier on, the county governors have been calling for at least 407 billion shillings. There was a bit of hue and cry on online platforms of people castigating some senators that voted to retain it at 385 instead of 407. But also, this is coming at a time that the counties have been suffering to an extent that National Treasury just released that 1.45 billion shillings to the counties. This is resources meant for the counties for the month of January 2023. They are still owed some 3 months, totaling to about 94 billion shillings. But let me begin with you, Dr. because there was a strike of healthcare workers, whether it's in Kisumu, Nyamira, and 2 other counties. And what you make of the progress that we've made as a country in terms of devolving these functions, but the challenges that every other time you have delays in release of resources from the national government, but also how the counties are organizing themselves around these services for better healthcare to the Mwananchi.
You know, you brought 2 very major issues, really. The devolution of services and in particularly healthcare. That's an issue on its own. You have also brought the issue of releasing cash to the counties, which is another issue that's affecting both the national and the county government. Then you also brought the issue of how much money should be given to the counties, and the senators are actually shooting down the attempt to get more money. But let me start with the health system. I think the issue of money not being released to the counties is something we should look at, really. Even if the collection of revenue is low, in my view, whatever little is collected should be actually shared between the national and the county government in the proportion that has been agreed on. So that delay is not good, but it has also affected the national government. The health sector, if you relate it to that, the health sector is actually one of the most sensitive health sectors. In my view, what is happening to health services in the counties is a reflection of what is happening to all functions that are devolved, be it water, be it agriculture, be it fisheries. But what we are seeing in health is that health is sensitive, and there's a demand, and the health workers are a very organized group, very well organized, so they bring out the issues. In relation to that, I think our devolution, the problem of actual devolution has not been really well completed. Mm-hmm. The structures that need to have been devolved, I think, have not been devolved well. If you look at just the issue of employment of doctors, even let's start with training of health workers, employment of health workers, their job progression, promotion, and so on. It is not something uniform. The health workers are actually organized nationally. If you look at nurses association, it is national. If you look at the doctors and pharmacists, it is national. But then you now want to limit them, that if they have an issue, they deal with counties. And yet the conditions in the counties are themselves not uniform across. So there's need at one point to look at how do we have a system where all health workers, whether they are working in Migori or they are working in Garissa, have the same terms of service, the same conditions of employment, so that they feel they are actually taken care of. That is an issue in itself. But even when you go to the health services, what is priority given when the money gets to the county? Do you actually prioritize the health services, or if there are contractors that are doing roads, probably they push more and they get their money paid? So we may look at a country that we may actually have to ring fence the finances for health, mm-hmm, so that it can be taken care of. So, and where would this have been done properly? In my view, the structures that were put in place in management of actually all workers should mirror what is happening in the national government, like the Public Service Commission. Okay. We should have a similar arrangement. The issue will come if you make it national, like the health workers saying a national health service. The governors may rightly say, but I cannot have people who are working for me being employed, being promoted, and being disciplined if need be by another body. Right. But on their hand also they should say, if we put in place structures that are uniform across the country, they should follow it. Now, I myself had believed before that probably we don't need the Health Services Commission, as the health worker has been saying. But something happened during I think the health worker strike in Laikipia, and I think was it in Nyeri or Muranga, when the health workers went on strike. And there's provision even in the law, in the county public service laws, that if there's a dispute between the workers in the county and they cannot reach an amicable solution, that the Public Service Commission can actually be an arbiter. And the health workers went to the Public Service Commission, and the Public Service Commission ruled in their favor. But I think those two counties, it was Kirinyaga and Laikipia, completely ignored what the Public Service Commission said. And up to now, there are health workers who actually either were dismissed against that background. So to that extent, the county, the governors and the county government must be ready to actually adhere to the standards and policies that are set nationally. I think that's an important point if you're going to look at it. So I've talked about structures, I've talked about ring-fencing finance, but then you come to another, which I'm also keen on, that the senators actually shot down the request by counties. Now, on that one, my issue has always been, and I've said it, my colleague may have remembered me saying it many times, when we are doing the division of revenue, we start with what's called the budget policy strategy. At that time, we find two processes that I think is the cause of this. When we are doing the budget policy strategy, the national government goes into details of all the MDAs, the ministries, the departments and agencies, and give an indication of what their need is. So that when that document comes to Parliament, they are asking for this much, but you can see in detail what it's going to do. Now, that is the document that we'll use to divide the money into two. On the part of the county government, there is no detailed information that comes to Parliament. We only use two things, two formulas. One, the 15% rule, and two, the Commission of Revenue recommendation. And that Commission of Revenue recommendation is based on general formula that we're saying. My view is the budget process for both the national government and the county government should start at the same time. And we should also have, to some extent, details of what the counties need and what they are going to do, so that at the time in Parliament, we see national government is looking for this is what they want to do it. County government is looking for this, and this is what to do.
Don't you think that would be going overboard? Because that's what the county assemblies should be doing for their respective counties.
Yeah, but it's okay. It is how when you start it. It is when you start it. When you start, you should start it even when the county assembly has the opportunity to look at it. What do we do? Do you know when the budget process starts? It actually starts in August. And the national government has all the time to have what they call sector meetings and so on. I think at that time, those meetings should also be going on at the county level, so that when we're dividing the money, we know. And I think the body that should actually look at it, there are two bodies, which to my mind have not worked as well as I would like. The IBEC, that is one, which is chaired by the Deputy President. They should look at the details of that's required. But how that should be done and structured is something that should be dealt with at intergovernmental relations technical committee.
Right.
Which, if you want to go into details, I have issues with, because it has two structures there, which I think are not relating well. One is that technical committee itself, and then there is the Council of Governors. There's a secretariat of the Council of Governors. By law, this committee should be the secretariat for the Council of Governors and for the summit. So you have two institutions that seem to be doing the same thing, and I don't know which is which. You have IBEC also, the third one, which in my mind is not looking for the details other than a formula. Formulas are generalities, details help.
Okay. Interesting. Dr. Khumalo, so as a defender of human rights and fundamental rights...
And evolution.
You add that. So you have a situation that, yes, it is true that the government has been facing cash flow challenges. Some workers have gone without a pay. But to the extent that patients have to be turned away or they have to wait for them to be served because there's a standoff between an employer and an employee, how do we rectify this more than close to 11 years now of devolution?
Sam, I had a meeting with Dr. Nyikal and the Secretary General of Doctors Union, Dr. Atel, and another doctor about 2-3 weeks ago. And I listened to them and their frustrations around management of healthcare in Kenya, in particular employment of 4,000 or so doctors. And I followed very keenly with their discussions across this debate for a long time. And I feel them. The only thing they lack is the right structures to have this conversation taken to the next level. Because if they don't do that, then it's going to be blame game. And I can predict with relative ease what Honorable Kagosha is going to say, what Honorable Onyonka is going to say, and what Dr. Nyikal is going to say here about devolution. So I no longer follow this debate they have every year about division of revenue, because it's predictable how they're going to vote and the conversation they're going to have. Here's the point, Sam. Kenya has a constitution that embraces devolution, but the political class has not internalized what devolution is. In the process, they are frustrating devolution, and they're not listening to experts. People like myself are never listened to when it comes to helping them implement devolution in a structured way that benefits the country equitably. In fact, for the most part, they dismiss us, yet we know devolution more than they do. The bigger point is, we need to relook, and I hope this bipartisan talk is not just another hot air round. I hope they are going to bring in key stakeholders to advise them, and I'm happy that part of the, I think it's Azimio that has brought in experts. I hope Kenya Kwanza also brings in experts to help them, so that this bipartisan talk is not about IEBC per se. It's about deeper issues around devolution. What percentage do we devolve? How do we implement devolution? And how do we then ring-fence it from political interference every 5 years or so? You know, Sam, I was shocked to hear the president say that he wants CDF entrenched in the Constitution. You know, any average lawyer will tell you that is the beginning of interference with what is called checks and balances. When you make what is called CDF, you make it a constitutional fund, but importantly, you give those who should be oversighting the national government the responsibility to be, they call themselves patrons, to be patrons. In the process, they are going to negotiate for funds that they are spending, that they are doing an executive role. So I was shocked. That's when I realized, okay, even the president most likely needs serious legal advice on how we make this, and you know, I like the political environment I'm seeing. For the first time, I'm not seeing hatred in the political class. I'm seeing people grappling with real governance issues, what they call cost of living, but these are real governance issues. Of course, no government will bring cost of living down, but we can create political climate for people to be productive. And once people are productive, of course, cost of living will come down. So I hope that we take this bipartisan talks very seriously. But importantly, we implement devolution with the right experts in mind. Those not looking for money per se or employment. You know, the problem in Kenya is that nowadays, if you abuse Azimio leaders, then people think you are looking for government appointment boards or whatever, these things they make on Fridays, this appointment they make on Fridays. And if you, of course, seen with the president, then of course the other narrative also develops. So there are people like me who are not looking for appointments. We just want to genuinely advise the government to the right way forward. We genuinely don't want this stigmatization around human rights or we were earlier talking about religion. We didn't discuss what I think is the most important. There's a direct correlation between poverty and religion. That I think I'll come back and discuss with Nimrod around 10 or so.
Okay.
But, my friend, you need to listen to experts so that we implement devolution once and for all in a very progressive way. Kenya, and by the way, Sam, you also need to know this, there's a direct correlation between democracy and devolution. Countries that are stable, progressive, inclusive, normally are devolved. And they don't devolve 15, they devolve 30, 40. And by the way, there are lots of checks and balances. And was it last Friday when the president was talking about stifling counties from taxation, from introducing new taxes? That's also unconstitutional. Yes, the president has no mandate to tell counties which taxes they impose, so long as the taxes are progressive and predictable. Okay. So the less said,
you said quite a lot, including what now you insinuated to be Friday appointments. I didn't know they happened on Friday.
Well, last time they happened on Thursday.
And I think it's about the issue of gazettement. Normally, the Kenya Gazette comes out on Friday, traditionally, over the years. That's why now you will get most of the appointments
appearing
on Fridays.
Senator Onyonka, so yes. First of all, should Kenyans be bashing? I've seen a list of 22 senators who voted, knowing too well that as a senator you have an opportunity to apply your mind. And I don't know whether the reason behind 385, I think I had the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary saying that it is because of the resources that the government is projecting to have. So should your colleague senators be bashed for agreeing with the government, or should reason thrive even on the streets of social media?
Sammy, the question I would ask back to you is, what is the role and responsibility of the Senate? We are actually caught in a catch-22 position. This gentleman, my brother here, is a lawyer, and I'm proud that he went to Cardinal Otunga High School.
Yes, that's right.
Sammy, I sit in the Senate. I have never worked in a place that is more frustrating like the Senate. We are given our responsibilities and our roles. We are then given the necessary governing structures, including the fact that, Sami, we are supposed to have the Commission of Revenue Allocation, which is a constitutional commission, which then is presumed to give recommendations using that formula, which we may sometimes trivialize, in terms of agreeing on how this revenue is going to be allocated. Then I find myself in a position where, exactly on what Dr. Nyikali is talking about, why do we find it impossible, just the way we understand that our teachers, at some point, it was realized that it was necessary for them to have their own commission, for them to manage their own business, and for them to actually come and ring fence their responsibilities and whatever that pertains to their jobs and their service provision. The doctors in this country are people that we are actually mistreating and mishandling. And as you've heard my brother Dr. Nyekal say here, several years when I was in the National Assembly with him, there has never been a time when you would actually say that our doctors are saying what we are doing is being remunerated or paid for and fairly and reasonably. Even some of the benefits that we are supposed to get are commensurate to our education, commensurate to our time in university. And what has just happened is, these days, any governor who comes into the county government, depending on what his interest is, he will fire them. He will try and redeploy them without even consultation. He will pick up some of these members of the KMPDU and transfer them because they are asking questions, why don't we have medicines in the hospital? In fact, the governors never want to take any expertise from the doctors who are working in our hospitals. So I want to agree with Dr. Nyikal that the health profession, particularly our doctors and nurses, must, if we are going to have a constitutional change, we must bring the fact that there also need for them to have their own commission, which will be dealing with the issues and which will be interfacing between the national government and the county governments, so that there is at least some minimal standardization on what their services are. And then you can now bring in the question of, should these doctors then go and serve in the hospital only, or can they open their clinics as they're working at the hospitals? That divided royalty can be dealt with once people know what exactly they're entitled to. Number two, when you come to the county governments, and I want to tell my brother Kagusha here, you see, Mheshimiwa Kagusha, the problem with the KK Alliance is this. Tell us, we have been collecting this amount of revenue. So far, KRA has said the revenue we have collected is okay. It is even beyond what our expectation was. Let the government come up and tell us, like in America or Britain, every country that has got debts, you know what they owe. Let us now know how much we owe. Let us know how much we are collecting. Then let's go for our recurrent expenditure. My brother, we know that 45 billion is what we consume on a monthly basis, on what we are paying our workers, the military, the police, and everybody. Times 12 months, it's about 500 billion. Okay. Now, if you have collected 1.6 trillion, and most probably, and you know we've not hit June, we are most probably going to hit 1.8 trillion. If we know that our debts is about 700 billion, Sami, last time we were talking about it here, we put it even at 800 billion. The government just needs to come and tell us, these are our debts, this is what we collect, and this is what we are paying on our recurrent. The reason that is the case, now you can bring those arguments how Uhuru stole from you guys. Then you can tell us Uhuru and Matiang'i and Raila during the handshake, they stole 190 billion. Now you see this money, and then you have to explain to an ordinary Kenyan, is this money that the government collects put in commercial banks, or is it put collecting interest, or is it put in the central bank, so that people know where all this money is. The problem is, your side is telling me I have to ignore the Commission of Revenue Allocation, which has said we need to give county governments 407 billion. And then you are telling me, of course, Deputy President Gachagua is the first one who said how there are no revenues coming from KRA, we are not hitting targets. The chairman said, no, we are hitting the targets. Then David Indi now comes and says these guys are actually wasteful. The government is in fact with the crazy. These people are spending money. Even me, I'm shocked. Imagine that is the president's economic advisor. What do you expect an ordinary Kenyan like me, who is realizing the government has money, you are employing 50 CASs, you are having every cabinet minister in the KK Alliance as we speak has not spent less than 200 million refurbishing his office. Every one of them.
How do you know that figure?
Sammy, I always tell you things here. When you check, they come true. You remember when I was telling you that these guys are going to be employed, you said, how do you know? See, they came out 54. These things, I'm in government, in the opposition. We get this information. So why are we going on an expenditure retreat as if it is the end of the world? This country has challenges. We just want your government. I want President William Ruto to stand and face Kenyans, including me, and say, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we collected. This is what we have. We have got these debts. We are not able to manage most of our problems. Wait, let me finish. Deputy Governor, let me finish. This is why we are not able to give the county governments 407 billion. We can only afford 885 billion. 385. Right. So for me as a senator, not a senator from the ODM side or Kenya, I mean Azimio side. For me as a senator, my responsibility is to do two things. One is to impeach the president. The other one is to defend revolution. And if you are not giving the county governments money according to what the Constitution says, according to what the Revenue Allocation Commission has recommended, aren't you going unconstitutional? Aren't you breaking the law?
Okay. All right. Speaker Kagusha, I think I just have to allow you the right of reply.
Yeah.
Your take on all those issues that he's raising.
Yeah, I think first we need to separate facts from fiction. Today, my brother, Honorable Onyonka, has dramatized.
Something you have to protect him. This man
he has really dramatized.
I'm here to protect all of
He has really dramatized his. He has really dramatized his
He needs
fiction.
to use parliamentary language without passing aspersions to my well-spoken English and capacity to express myself intelligently.
To use language in...
To use normal language.
I was wondering at what point will my brother here Onyonka dramatize anything. I was looking for that point.
It has come.
It has come. Yeah. and I would want to say that first, the issue of budget making is a function of Parliament and Senate. Before, the National Assembly and Parliament, so to say, had three roles: representation, oversight, and legislation. But came the 2010 Constitution, which now introduced budgeting, also as part of roles of Parliament and part of our duty. So the part of, the roles of a senator, really, I would want to broaden my brother's perspective here. Is not just about to impeach the president and to defend devolution. Over and above that, I would want Honorable Onyonka also to add budget making. I would also want him to add legislation. I would also want to add him oversight. It's important that we do that. And why am I emphasizing on the issue of budgeting? Because we have a very, very important role. Today, Sam, when we start making the budget process, we have to summon the cabinet secretary to the committee where they report to or which oversights them. And they have to come and defend their budget. And if we say no at the committee level, it is a no. There is no way as a cabinet secretary you're going to be getting anything beyond what your committee allows you. So if a cabinet secretary would spend 200,000 shillings to 200 million to refurbish their office, is only because Honorable Senator Onyonka has allowed them. In this case, like the cabinet secretary who reports to my committee, we did not allow that, we did not pass it, and that would be absurd if it ever happened. And I would want to say that is fiction, it's not a fact. And there's no committee in the National Assembly that is going to allow their cabinet secretary to use such kind of colossal amounts of money in that kind of dubious activities. I am telling you that will not be allowed. And I would want to see one who have done that. And really, that is now casting aspersions to the cabinet secretaries. On matters devolution, I have been a speaker of the county assembly. And I would tell you, if I was in Senate, I would vote with the counties. Come rain, come sunshine. Because I know the mandate of the county is so important and we have to deliver to the people on the ground. Matters health, for example, is one of the biggest misses that we have in the county governments. We are shortchanging the population in a very serious way when it comes to the health services. And I say this with a lot of heaviness because sometimes I go to my local level 4 hospital and except maybe like lately now there's a bit of improvement in terms of supply of drugs. And but still we have a very serious challenge with the issue of laboratory services in some of those hospitals. When I was leaving the county assembly, there is one bill that we did pass, and we enacted it into an act. It was enacted by the governor that was called the Nyeri Health Services Funding Bill 2021, and we passed it late 2021 or early 2022. And what this bill dictated is that all the monies that we are collecting in all the hospitals in Nyeri County will no longer be submitted to the exchequer. it will be
account.
Yeah, it will be an A in A. It will be accounted for now in the hospitals in Nyeri County, and even the bigger hospitals collect also for the smaller hospitals. They use that money also to support the smaller dispensaries in Nyeri County, and I can tell you that is working magic in Nyeri County today, and there's a improvement of drug supply, medicine supplies in the hospitals, not to the level that we want, but I can tell you we have a very, very big challenge when it comes to funding our health. And what we need to do is to give counties more financial muscle to be able to handle this. But we also need to ensure that also the counties, and this is where now the senators would come in as much as also the county assemblies do come in. We also need to ensure that the recurrent expenditure in the county governments are also not growing with the growth of financial support. Because some of them also get into employment spree. Every new governor who comes, they want to employ their own people. So you find there are layers and layers of employees at the county level.
Did they still do it this time?
I mean, it's still being done. It's still being done. Governors are still employing. It's very unfortunate. And you find that you have layers of the first governor, and the layer of the council, we had the municipal council and the county councils. We have another layer for the second governor, another layer for the third governor, and it's a very, very unfortunate situation. So as much as we are voting money to the county governments, the Senate must also come in very strongly, and the county assemblies to oversight the governors, to ensure that, for example, in terms of employment, we can only employ where we are replacing retired officers, or where it is very necessary to have specialized cases. Okay. Now, on the issue of having a body that employs and governs and regulates the health practitioners in this country, to me, I would say it's a long overdue. It would look like a crowback in terms of devolution, but I can tell you there's a very, very serious problem in this. What happens on the counties is like if you go to Nyeri County, you'll find like maybe we have 100 doctors. You'll be very shocked that these 100 doctors that we have in Nyeri County, only half of them are available to offer services to the people. Why? Because half of them are back in Nairobi attending classes and doing school. And so what happens is that when they're in Nairobi...
They'll study leave or what?
Yeah, study leave. They get study leaves. And it's something that they really defend very seriously. And it's a good thing. It's okay for a doctor to further their education to become a specialist. It's okay. But because you're employed by Nyeri County, and now you're studying in Nairobi, what happens? You now do not serve the people of Nyeri or any other county. That happens across the county. And this is one of the problems that governors experience from time to time and throughout. So you are in Nairobi, you are doing your studies here, but also there's no doctor who will be doing studies when they're also not in hospital. So they'll be moonlighting somewhere in a hospital, in a private hospital, in a doctor's plaza somewhere, and they will not be serving people, the public, in public hospitals. So that is a big problem. And I think if we had one body that is employing the doctors, that would be regulated. So that I know as your employer, if I send you if I allow you to go and study, and you come to Nairobi, then I will get another doctor from Nairobi and take them where you are coming from. And when you are here in Nairobi, you will also be serving in this hospital. Okay. You know, because the studies for doctors also involve a lot of involvement in the hospitals. And I would also want to say there's a case that we also need to look when we are looking at the issue of health services. We need to look at Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital. You know, there's a very important thing happening today there, headed by Professor Mugenda. Today, the president is going to be doing the official commissioning of what they are calling the CyberKnife. And this is advanced technology in treating cancers and doing non-invasive surgeries. And if you look at this hospital now, it's a public hospital, and it's offering services as though it was a private hospital, in the sense that it has very high quality services, even though it's a public institution, which you don't pay so much. In fact, a lot of these services they have here are catered for by NHIF, and it's high level of innovation. And I would really want to commend Professor Mugenda for having shown very good leadership and innovation and creativity and ability to mobilize resources to be able to set up an institution of this caliber. And this is something we need to look at and see how we can replicate it around the country. Can we have county governments? Can we have governors who would match up Professor Mugeda to do their level 5, level 4 hospitals, level 6 hospitals to this caliber, so that we have better services to the people of this republic?
I hear you, and I would just wonder how they would do that at a time that some counties have only about 29% of the resources going to development expenditure. We are out of time, but I've not given Dr. Komola an opportunity. A minute so that I can take a look at feedback.
Yes, so first, we need to be very careful when you hear politicians discussing healthcare professionals. The more I listen to them, the more I realize that they have not internalized the real issue around devolution of health services. And that's why they need to have serious conversation with experts on how we devolve healthcare, and importantly, how to manage healthcare professionals. This thing they call healthcare commission, I don't think they understand it. They're probably talking about an employment agency. That is not where we are headed. Most countries that have efficient healthcare systems have serious hospitals built around universities, research centers, and then of course they have serious intervention in terms of primary healthcare that Dr. Nyikal, I know, knows about more than I do. But importantly, Senator Onyonka was a bit economical with the truth. The Senate is a very idle institution in Kenya, and it has been made to be idle. It's deliberately frustrated not to work. And I hope, Senator, that in the bipartisan talks, we restate the position of Senate as a bicameral institution to check the lower house that they keep saying is upper house. The reality is that what we know as Parliament is the lower house. And whatever they do should...
What do you mean? Parliament?
Yes, in a bicameral system. You know, that when we start talking about that here, it will be too technical.
You said that Parliament is the lower house?
Yes.
National Assembly.
What they call National Assembly. An institution that works in a country that embraces bicameral system, we should be having everything that goes to the National Assembly must also go to the Senate, so that they check each other.
That would define Article, is it 96?
Exactly, which is where we should be going, which is where we should be going with bicameral talks, with bipartisan talks, so that we have institutions that check themselves before they are checked by other organs outside. So we are talking about very serious things, but I think we are still having this narrow Azimio, Kenya Kwanza kind of lenses that then basically avoids the broader conversation. Because why would you elect somebody as intelligent as Senator Onyonka here and make him idle?
You know, Dr. Komola, what you've done this morning is that you've added a lot of issues to the terms of reference of the bipartisan talks. You've included devolution. You've also included Senate and its place in the bicameral system. I don't know.
And I've also told them.
Although I've also noted,
because I think we are going this way. Let me just say this.
Although I have also noted Dr. Komora has a way of belittling and demeaning politicians.
No, not at all. Let me say this.
I'm aware of helping you to the right one.
Brother, let me say this, gentlemen. The truth is, yes, I was very careful in terms of giving us what our position is in terms of the Senate. I can tell you this. Kenyans need to make a decision whether you're going to keep the Senate or whether you're going to disband it. There's no question about it. Because you can't give me an office where I'm taking taxpayers' money, I'm given a responsibility which doesn't exist. You want me to oversight, all right, the national government and even the county governments, and yet you make it impossible for me to manage that. Why? Because I'm a member of parliament from Kisii County, which has got 9 constituencies, and yet you give me one office, you don't give me officers to do what I need to do to make sure that I'm taking the county government on check. Number 2, I wanted to mention another thing. When I raise the issues about whether a government officer spent 200 million to build an office, Sammy, what I'm actually saying is this. I think government, whether it is a government of KK Alliance or any government, we now need to be more serious to understand that Kenyans are tired and sick and tired of our wastage. People do not. Let me give you an example. Dr. Nyikal, you may agree with me or not. Even my brother here. Why do we give a member of parliament a car which is a grant worth 10 million?
Huh?
All right? We get a car grant, 8 million, sorry. 8 million.
Not even 8.
Okay.
Maybe Senate.
But it's a grant, right?
Yeah.
It's a car.
But not that
You have a car
They
grant,
actually
right?
changed the name.
Hold on. Why is it that if you become a majority leader, we give you another Land Cruiser with government fuel, with government driver to drive the same car? Why are you having 2-3 offices to run a minority office? Why can't you use your member of parliament office?
Sure.
Is that a miracle? It's not.
It's not.
Let's just change the way we do business. Kenyans are sick and tired of this game where we are actually misusing public funds, pretending like we are governing. And I want to say, Your Excellency,
Yeah.
if you have a chance to speak to the President Jomo Kenyatta College of Health and Referral, the university.
Kenyatta University. I'll be there.
It's a fantastic
I'll be
idea.
there.
I actually give Kenya Kwanza Alliance 100% credit for saving that hospital. I am really proud of the work that the team there has done.
All right.
By the way, I was.
have not.
I'll just give you 1 minute where the crux of the matter is, and we all of us here are not picking it.
This is the last word, yes.
Now, what is the role of Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee? That is the body, and above it, the Council of Governors. That is the body that was to get together and see what is happening in county government and how can we relate it to national government. And so that it was, remember the authority that it passed. Now, Transition Authority. That is where the most, even this issue of what you passed, FIF I did in 2005, where money was actually to remain where it was collected. Devolution brought it back. Now, they should have started a long time ago at Intergovernmental as it put this thing back. Now they're putting it bit by bit.
In counties.
In counties. It had worked. It was there. This issue of training doctors, when they come to Kenyatta, why should Kiambu or Kisumu pay for doctors who are working in Kenyatta or working in Moi? These doctors, we should have a national money, which when they are trains them, the money then lives with the counties. They can employ others. Okay. All these things, until we look at the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, the Council of Governors, and the role of IBEC, those 3 things, we will not get devolution right. Okay. Because all these details, even Kenyatta University, it is doing a fantastic job. I know when it started, when it was brought as a university hostel, now it is no longer a university hostel, but it's doing a good job. That's why it's wondering whether it is private or public. Because that was missed out. Again, that is something we would have discussed there. So it is how devolution cannot happen in a day. It should be gradual. And those 3 bodies, Council of Governors, Technical Committee, IBEC, they should sit down and not look at it in an adversarial way, but how do we get the problem solved? Okay. If they do that, we shall be home. We can take this together.
Indeed. All right. Thank you so much.
We can't take.
I don't think there's any.
Get this. Get
one that. Right. Dr. Nyikal says that you need to get some more time to talk about that, and we will, the appropriate time. So much feedback that has come to us, but unfortunately we may not get an opportunity to take it because Willis Raburu is waiting. He's here to talk about how successful people look like, and I think he's going to say they look like Manchester City. My name is Sam Gituku. See you some other time. Bye for now.